to the Student Success Stories podcast, the podcast where we spotlight academic success at Baylor University. In today's episode, we meet with Henry Burns to talk all things pandemic learning. We look back at the past year and talk about what we have learned from the pandemic experience. Though the end of the pandemic seems to be in sight, it can be nerve-wracking to think about how different next semester might look. Tune in for this and much more. Welcome to the Student Success Stories podcast. We're here with Henry Burns. You want to start by introducing yourself real quick?
Yeah, hey guys, my name is Henry. I am a senior biochemistry major from Woodbury, Minnesota, and I've also got a business minor to go along with that.
Okay, cool, very cool. Congrats on graduating soon.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Are you taking mostly online classes or mostly in-person classes right now?
I've got a good mix of both. I've got some in person and then some online, some synchronous online and some asynchronous. So I've kind of all over the place. So I've gotten a good feel for the COVID semester, I'd say.
How does it feel to be so close to graduating?
It's really exciting, and then it's also a little bit sad at the same time. I've loved my time here at Baylor, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And so it's kind of bittersweet to realize that I'm moving on to something else, but I'm also looking forward to kind of taking that next step into graduate school.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Absolutely. Did you ever expect that your senior year would look like this?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody really would have, but at the same time, I feel like me and the people around me have really made the most of it, and we've still had a great time, even though that it's been a little bit more challenging of a year, and I still feel like I learned a lot, even despite the online semesters. So it's been good.
Yeah, it's good to hear that you made the most of it. It's definitely a unique experience, I guess. What would you say has been the most surprising challenge to online learning this year?
I would say, I hear everybody talking about Zoom fatigue, and not to just add to that, but I would say that really is, I think, the most challenging component of it. I've read a whole bunch of articles about why it's so fatiguing, but kind of regardless of that, I think everybody's just kind of experienced the challenge of just sitting on your computer for several hours at a time, just kind of alone in your room, trying to focus on class when there's a lot of other distractions around. And so I would say that, transitioning from having all of my lectures in person with people around me to just kind of being by myself in my room on Zoom has been, I would say, the most significant challenge, because I really kind of cherish those times in lectures where I could be in there with my friends and doing practice problems with the professor and having like really just that engagement between professors and students is something that I miss a lot. I think that that's something that's definitely gotten missed in the shuffle a little bit with Zoom, and so it's definitely something I missed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was registering for classes for next semester, and a lot of them, there's not even an online option. So definitely you're like seeing the end of that online experience. If that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. I mean, I have an 8 a.m. and I have to be on campus for it, so I'm a little bit bitter, but it is what it is. Is there anything you wish you knew about online learning before you started?
That's a good question. I would say just really, I would say the biggest thing that I wish I knew is how to make like my space kind of optimized for online learning, like in my room. Because I feel like when I started, I just kind of just went in, just kind of not having many expectations, because I feel like we're all just kind of thrown into it. But I feel like when I'm kind of going into a Zoom lecture and something like that, over time, I've kind of developed a little bit more of a routine to kind of prepare myself a little bit more for the lectures, so it doesn't feel like I'm just kind of rolling out of bed and rolling in front of my computer with my camera off to go listen to a lecture, because I feel like I kind of was missing that kind of preparation time where I can kind of sit down in the lecture, get my stuff out and ready to go when I actually had to be there in person. So.
Yeah, I hear a lot of the students that come on here say that they like to give themselves like 30 minutes before their online classes just to like make sure they're awake, maybe look at the syllabus and the schedule for that day. Yeah, I hear a lot of people say that. How do you stay motivated for your online classes where it might be harder to help hold yourself accountable since your professors aren't doing that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think that really motivation, especially for online class, it kind of just comes from knowing your why with what you're studying, So like kind of what drives you to succeed in the major that you've chosen for yourself. And so for myself, I really feel like it comes back to my faith. And so 1 Corinthians 10:31 is one of my favorite verses, and And it really just says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. And so I think for myself, it definitely helps out for me to be able to kind of go at my day with the mindset of, I can be honoring to God right now by just appreciating the blessing He's given me of an education at Baylor, by preparing myself for this online lecture, and then paying attention and asking questions and being responsive to the professor, just knowing that all that does glorify God. And just by participating in such a way, I think that that's something that helps me at least to focus a little bit more and to make it a little bit more than just about myself. Because if it were up to me, I would be a lot less into, sitting in front of those Zoom lectures and
Mhm.
making sure that I was fully prepared. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Like keeping in mind the grand scheme of things and that there is a plan and that, this is all for something. What was
mhm.
the hardest or most challenging part about this past year with online learning?
I would say just being kind of just distant from the normal routine that I feel like I had established on campus. I feel like I had gotten like by the time I was kind of through my sophomore and kind of into my junior year, I was feeling like I had kind of figured out the college game a little bit, where I was kind of ready and knew what to expect going into a college lecture. And then that was kind of all upended when we switched online, because it really is just kind of a completely different thing compared to what we started with in my freshman years here at Baylor. So I would say that just that biggest transition, just kind of getting ready to just flip online was definitely something that I struggled with a little bit. But
Yeah, just like being flexible and like knowing to look ahead at your schedule. And like, how are you even supposed to know how to do online classes at such short notice? So yeah,
exactly.
it's crazy that we've like actually been able to do this. Is there anything that you feel like you've learned from the experience of living through this pandemic, or just like trying to learn through this pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I think we're capable of a lot, just as individuals and as a society, to go from um, not knowing what Zoom was before spring break of last year, and then now at this point being completely like capable and like fully used to being able to use Zoom to its fullest capacity, professors and students alike. I think just says a lot about our resilience. And I think for myself, the biggest thing that I've taken out of the pandemic, I would say, is just perseverance. Because there's always a different challenge or something, some curveball that gets thrown your way, especially with everything feels like it's changing almost by the week, just in terms of regulation, stuff like that. And so I would say just, growing in your aptitude to being able to, take some positives out of each situation that you're put into. And even in situations where it feels like it's as bad as it can get, is that there's still kind of a positive side there. And so that's really what I would say about that, is that, it's just really cool to see how everybody's kind of banded together and still made like a Baylor education as much as it could be despite the circumstances.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great answer. Is there anything that you've learned during the pandemic that you kind of like plan on bringing to the future with you?
That's a really good question. Honestly, like I would say, like just to really go back to that previous answer, just the perseverance that's come with it is, I feel like honestly, you'll see people, a lot of baseball players, you'll see in the on deck circle swinging the weighted bat. So then when they get up to the plate and they can take off their weight on their bat, they're swinging almost a lighter bat, so they feel a little bit more ready for what's coming their way. And I feel like that's almost like what school during the pandemic is like. It's a lot more difficult right now, and so then when everything kind of returns to being in person in the fall, hopefully it does kind of feel like taking that weight off your bat, so you have those habits built up when you really had to work extra and put in the harder work, so that when everything does go back in person, you're kind of good to go and you're feeling good about things. And so being able to take some of those habits and like the hard work that I'm putting in now to make up for the kind of additional tasks that online learning has given me, I feel like hopefully in the fall and stuff like that, that can get carried forward by people coming back to class having been in that online environment for so long.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great answer. Um, is is there anything you're looking forward to doing once the pandemic is over?
Yeah, I just honestly, I'm just really, really excited to be around my peers once more. I think that's a pretty popular answer, but
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to seeing a full McLean, full Farrell Center, stuff like that. I'm a huge sports guy, and so it's I've got some great memories, especially when we played Oklahoma a couple of years ago for that football stadium. Just the energy in there, just everybody supporting Baylor, like that was so cool to see, and so I'm really excited for incoming freshmen to be able to experience that energy the same way I had the chance to and stuff like that. So I think that, just being able to come together, even in smaller environments, to just without the same kind of fear of COVID and the masks and everything like that, I think would be really exciting to one day kind of return to that normal. I know it's kind of an overused phrase these days, but kind of go back to what we had pre-pandemic. I think that would be exciting. So
Yeah, I totally get that. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I definitely miss that too. Um, how do you stay connected with an online learning environment?
yeah, that's definitely something that's a little bit more of a struggle, but at the same time, we're using all this technology to keep us connected while being online. So I think it ends up being an extension of that. And so I think that what I've kind of relied on a little bit more is just trying to make a little bit more of an effort to call people, talk to people that I might just, run into on campus or something like that. Reach out, maybe talk to them about, getting coffee or something like that sometime where I could go meet up with them, or even if it's just a phone call back home, talk to my parents a little bit. That's something that I always appreciate. And so definitely just making a little bit more of an effort, because I think in the past we could rely a little bit more on just, oh, I'll bump into people on campus and talk to them.
Mhm.
But once you're all online, you're doing class from maybe a remote location, you don't have that same ability to just bump into people on your way as you're logging into Zoom. So I would say that, going out of your way to make that extra effort to, call people or talk to people you wouldn't otherwise, and even spending time with people that maybe your roommates or something like that. My roommates and I, we always would just kind of hang out. And even if we were just talking or, having tea or something like that, we would just, be able to go spend a little time together before and take a little break from the screens. So that's been something that's made me feel connected too.
Yeah, that's a great answer. You have to be a lot more intentional with your relationships and like spending time with people that are close to you. If you could give any advice to someone that is taking online classes, what would it be?
Yeah, I would really just say that it's a challenge, and I think that the best way to look at that is kind of addressing it as such. You know what I mean? Recognizing that you're taking on kind of a unique challenge. It's something that you haven't done before, and by kind of framing it from the perspective of like it's this challenge that you have the privilege of trying your hand at, I think is it actually makes it a little bit more fun than kind of labeling it as something that is frustrating or that you dread. Or if you wake up in the morning, you think like, I don't like online school and I wish we were back in person, but you're still gonna have to be online the rest of the semester. Your outlook's gonna be pretty dim and bleak. And so I think by kind of reframing it and saying like, hey, I'm a part of this like crazy historical event that I'll probably tell my kids about one day. I might as well go and make the most of it, because that makes for a little bit better story than telling my kids, yeah, I got up every morning and I just hated it, rather than being able to say like, I woke up, gave it my best, and here's some funny stories that happened along the way. So I would say just look at it as just an opportunity to go try something new, and that you probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, won't ever have to kind of do again in your life, because that would be helpful. No pandemics would be good.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. I think we're gonna wrap up soon here. Is there anything else you wanted to say to the people while you have their attention?
No, I just wish everybody the best. Praying that everybody's staying healthy with COVID, and that everybody's still able to plug in with their friends and family. All that's very important. And so I've just been really appreciative of the time here today. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for tuning in to the Student Success Stories podcast. You can listen to our previous episodes on iTunes, or you can find us on Instagram and YouTube at Student Success Stories. Would you like to be featured on the podcast? DM us on Instagram. Thank you for listening, and sick and bears.